Hey guys, I'm just gonna hope that this doesn't cut me off again, because I'm here today with the Dark Side of the Ring, Chris Benoit, Part 1 review. Tomorrow I'm going to drop Part 2, because I plan to have both of these out by this weekend, so I was gonna do Part 1 today. Actually, I was gonna do Part 2, but yesterday it cut me off, so we'll see how much time we have. Right into it, we get Jericho narrating it, and then we get a news report of what happened, a news clip. Jericho comes off as very no-nonsense, no BS type, and he basically says in so many words, it's about to get real, so if you don't want to listen to this, if you don't want to, I need to talk about this, I need to get this off my chest, so if you're going to give me crap about it later, stop listening to it now. So, I respect Jericho for that. The people they interviewed for this, they interviewed Nancy Topolini's sister, or Nancy Benoit's sister, Sandra. They interviewed Chavo Guerrero. They interviewed Jericho, Jim Ross, Chavo Guerrero, Vicky Guerrero. I forget that guy that wrote that book. Matt something. I can't remember his last name. Christopher Nowinski. David Benoit, obviously. So they interviewed Dean Malenko. They interviewed a pretty good cast of people for this. So they get into much of his early life. They get into a little bit of his early life. Basically, they just talk about stuff we already knew as fans. Like, he grew up watching Dynamite Kid, and he got his first weight set. He worked in Stampede Wrestling and in Japan, basically, where he became Pegasus Kid, and then Wild Pegasus. Then they get into Nancy's story, kind of. They get into how she met Kevin Sullivan in Florida Championship Wrestling, and she became Fallen Angel. That was her name in FCW. Then they get into the woman gimmick, where she would go to WCW. I don't even think they mentioned her ECW run with Sandman and all that, but that's not the point. Kevin Sullivan was the booker for WCW, and he booked himself into a storyline with Chris Benoit, where they're feuding, and basically he books his own divorce. That's the running joke in this, is that he books his own divorce and goes into basically just he's not too happy with Chris when he finds out that Chris and Nancy are actually together in real life, not just in storyline. And I guess Nancy started getting abused by Kevin, and she would go wherever Chris was, because Chris helped her. And they go to Bash at the Beach, and Sandra tells the story. I forget who the psychologist was that was interviewed for this. I forget. It's one of Nancy or Chris's family members. I don't remember who it was. I don't even think she said who it was. But Nancy basically leaves Kevin for Chris, and Sandra tells the story that they're at Bash at the Beach, and Chris and Kevin are having a match, and then it turns into a real shoot fight. And Kevin and Sandra go backstage, and with Chris, and Kevin's telling her, come on, come with me, and Chris is on the phone with Nancy, and he hands the phone to Sandra and says, no, your sister needs to talk to you. And Nancy basically tells her in so many words, get out of there, go with Chris. So she went with Chris and found out Chris was a really nice guy. And, wow. A lot to remember. So Eddie Guerrero's story is kind of told in this too. I feel like this is honestly a documentary on Chris and Eddie, but it's more on the Chris Benoit side. But, I mean, you can't really tell his story without telling Eddie's, or a part of it, anyway. So, Eddie and Chris met in Japan, and at first they didn't like each other. So, Eddie and Chris would fight each other. Like, he would call Vicky from the road, Eddie would, and he'd be like, oh man, I gotta work with this guy again. And then they ended up gaining respect for each other and becoming best friends for the next 15 years until Eddie's death. And Eddie got him through a lot. And I'm gonna explain later, I mean, just how deeply this affected him when Eddie died. But when Chris was in WCW, Chris, Eddie, and Dean, and they weren't happy when they realized that they can only get so far. Because back then, if you weren't 6 foot tall and had basically weren't the Incredible Hulk, you weren't getting booked in the main event spots. So Chris, Eddie, and Dean all left and went to WWE, and they took Perry Saturn and became the Radicals. So they get into a lot of Eddie's substance abuse issues, and Vicky talks about him getting fired, and they had to take him out of the hotel in Minneapolis, in Minnesota. I think that's also where he died. Like, I don't know if it was the same hotel or not, but that's, like, freaking sad, really. Vicky talks about him basically overdosing in their house 3 times, and she just called the police first 2 times, and then the third time she was just like, you know what, I'm done, and took the girls, left, and Eddie basically took him a while, but he got himself clean, and he got Vicky and his kids back, and they adopted Eddie's daughter that he had from a previous marriage during those 2 years. So, and then they get into WrestleMania 20, which is honestly my favorite WrestleMania of all time, just because of the closing moments. Chris and Eddie standing there both with titles, with belts. Not the biggest guys, not the strongest guys, not the most popular, but the fans respected the heck out of both of them. See, I almost compare that to today's, 10 years ago when, you remember when Daniel Bryan and CM Punk were both champ? That's what it made me feel like when I watched that, for the first time. But David ends up going to say that he wishes that Eddie and Chris would have just retired right then. And, just stopped right there. Then Chavo goes into the story where he found Eddie, basically. They were having a super show in Minneapolis, and Raw and SmackDown. And he's talking on the plane to Eddie, and Eddie kind of just passes out. And Chavo didn't know that he was doing that frequently in, mid-sentence with people. He didn't think anything of it, but him and Eddie always roomed together, and that was the one night that they didn't. So him, Chris, and Eddie were going to get up and train the next morning, and Chavo basically tells the story about him getting the call from the front desk at the hotel, telling him that something was wrong with Eddie, and Chavo goes to his room, finds Eddie in the bathroom floor, face down, and basically just he finds him dead, or he dies in his arms. And that was just freaking sad, because Chavo started crying when he was telling that, and I just wanted to reach through that screen and hug him. Like, no joke. And Vicky basically tells a story about how Nancy basically just Nancy came, and Vicky was kind of depressed and just wouldn't get up and do what she had to do after they buried Eddie. And Nancy just came in and was like, enough, you were gonna do this, we're gonna do this. And she was the one that got her up and said, we're gonna go to lunch, get in the shower. And Chris would come in to Vicky's on his days off, and basically he would just be in parts of the house crying. Like, he was be on Eddie's pillow, holding Eddie's pillow. He would be in Eddie's gym in his home, and that's just freaking sad, because Chris, I'm sure he wasn't like, see, people just misjudge people for being quiet. They take that as, oh, they don't want to talk to me because they don't like me. Chris had friends, but he just didn't trust many people until he got to know them, it seemed like. But, then things took a turn for the worse. Like, when they showed that footage of him talking at Eddie's tribute show, that just, I about cried. I about lost it. Chris didn't take Eddie's death very well. He just kind of closed off from everyone, really. Yeah, it's just, it sucks, because that was his one go-to guy that he just felt like he could talk to, and now he was gone. Him and Johnny Grunge, anyway, and then Johnny Grunge died, and he just didn't handle their deaths very well, especially Eddie's. And WWE didn't even give him time off for that. Like, they didn't even be like, hey, Chris, go take some time off. Like, if they could see that he was not dealing with this well, they should have given him time off. Who gets on a plane after their best friend's funeral and goes to Europe for a tour? Like, who does that? Wow. Like, I just don't get it. They should have given, don't give him time off 3 months later. Give him time off for 3 months. As soon as that happened. But they gave him a journal, basically, to write to Eddie with, kind of, I guess. There's nothing wrong with that. If that helped him cope, then good. But I don't know if it was enough, because he would just go to towns and he'd be like, oh, last time I was here, Eddie was here. Last time we were here, Eddie was here with me, and like, we did this. After Eddie died, he just kind of freaking just shut down. And look, if you ever lost a best friend, I can't imagine what that's like. Like, that would suck. I guess he would get impatient with Nancy, and Sandra talks about a couple incidents, with Chris and Nancy, where he would just get mad for no reason and just fly off the handle and become emotionally detached. But at work, he would never know it, because he put his game face on, and like I said, he didn't like opening up to people. He didn't. If Eddie wasn't there, he couldn't. We all have that one person that you go to for advice, and if you don't have that person, then you just feel obligated to not trust anyone. I get what that's like. I can imagine what Chris was going through. I mean, I never lost a best friend, but like that. But like, and then they basically get into that weekend, June 22nd through June 24th. And they basically kind of end the episode with them talking about that. Basically, the WWE employee or former detective, wherever he is, making the phone call to Fayette County Police Department. And overall, it was a good part one. This whole episode, it just was. Most of these parts are sad for different reasons. Like, the first one kind of was about Eddie, and the next one is just going to be really hard to get through. So tomorrow I'm going to review that. Wow. And we're going to be talking about some possibilities of what maybe happened. I'm sure it wasn't, I don't think it was just one thing, no. I mean, I think it was just, everything just piled up, and he just couldn't, he blacked out, snap. And you'll see why I think that in the coming weeks when we continue this project. Yeah, it was a sad episode, and the next part's not going to be any easier for me to talk about. But we'll get through it, and we're going to get this Benoit project done by hopefully the anniversary of this terrible, terrible tragedy. And we're going to be talking about it, and I'm going to give my thoughts on it. So, hope you guys have a good day. Peace.